Our sages in the Talmud say, Machshava mo'elis, thoughts help. Now, what does that mean? Well, thoughts make a difference, of course. Healthy, good thoughts give us a healthy life, spiritually, emotionally, psychologically, and even physically. As we now know, so much more so than ever before, in the 1960s, the Rebbe asked Dr. Fred Rosner, who was the head of the Orthodox Jewish Scientist Group, to do research on how thoughts help physically, mentally, emotionally, and specifically physically, our health. At the time, it was, thought that the physical is the physical, and anything of metaphysical has nothing to do with the physical. And of course, today we know that that's not the case. As a matter of fact, we know that 30% of healing is a placebo effect, which means your thoughts help. They make a difference. They're powerful. And hence, our moods, our mental, emotional, physical well-being is so dependent on our getting rid of negative thoughts and putting there positive thoughts. But there's more to the story. Welcome to Tanya Today. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Zichron Kadeshim in Montreal, Canada, where it's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. We begin today the fifth and final section of Tanya. It's called Kuntres Achrein, which translated means the later pamphlets. Let's just call it Kuntres Achrein. The truth is, all of the Tanya was originally in pamphlet form. It wasn't printed initially. It was a bunch of pamphlets come together, and people copied them one from the other until finally the Alter Rebbe in 1797 realized, I don't realize it's the right word, but had them printed in book form as by printer. Eventually, it was all contrasting. So in this last section of Tanya, now that it is taking issues, discussions, conversations that were previously dealt with, and now going a little deeper, more mystical, and in particular, finding contradictions in statements from the Zohar, from the Eitz Chaim, from mystical text, and to smooth out the issues, if you will. In this first essay that we'll do today, conclude today, there are two questions that are going to be dealt with. One is that how do you become connected with the supernal wisdom of God through Torah study that is merely a narrative, like much of what we are doing now in the first book of Genesis is a narrative. So when you're learning the law or you're learning application of a lesson, as Torah means, comes from the word Hayrah, a lesson, a guide for my life. Oh, okay, so then you're connected to God's supernal wisdom, right? But if it's just a storyline, how is it that you're connected to the supernal wisdom? And if you're only aware of the storyline, right? Even in the storyline, of course, there's deeper understanding. How are you connected to this Chokhmah of Atzilas, supernal wisdom? That's the question. And a second issue that will be dealt with is the Zohar says a statement that thoughts accomplish nothing. Now, it wasn't speaking about accomplishing, physical well-being, placebo effect. That was not the reference. Accomplishing nothing, meaning that if you think about words of Torah, right, but you don't articulate the words, you don't vocalize them, then you don't affect anything. You don't affect, in other words, you don't elicit from anything on high. What does that mean? How do we understand that? Okay. So, again, to understand how a person reading the narratives of the Torah becomes connected to Chachma, law, supernal wisdom. Right. Torah is the will and wisdom of God. So there needs to be the will of God expressed and the wisdom of God expressed in the teachings for us to be connected to the will and wisdom of God. But if you're just reading a narrative, a story, right? A simple story, how then are you bound up to the supernal wisdom? So this could be understood in light of what's written, that just as a person is engaged in Torah study down here, meaning physically right now, that's what we're doing. Likewise, the supernal man, right, meaning in the spiritual counterpart, physical man here, supernal man up there, is also engaged in the Torah study. Right? That's the likeness. Right? We're created in the likeness of the divine. Well, guess what? That likeness of the divine is also studying Torah when I'm doing it down here. Right? So when you're engaged in Torah study, even if it's merely the narratives of Torah, right? Only on that level of as a narrative. In other words, there's no, inner understanding um, of the narrative. Just learning on a simple narrative level, you're connected to divine wisdom in as much as your likeness above is bound up with the supernal wisdom. So accordingly, it's not through the actual learning that you're bound up with the with God, but it's only our likeness above. By the way, that would be like learning just Chumash, right? The storyline, and not understand more deeply. Here, of course, This is divine wisdom itself when we learn Tanya. So the Alter Rebbe now goes on and says, this will be making a distinction between, though, thought and verbalization, okay, of the teachings. So only when you're thinking about the narrative of the Torah, right, that would be the case. That your likeness, you're just reading the storyline. You're just reading the narrative. Then, yes, our likeness above is connected to supernal wisdom in the world of Atzilus. Our likeness only. However, if we articulate it, if we say the actual words of the narrative, we're not just reading it. Then by articulating speech, it pierces in a sense to the actual world of Atzilus. If you're a complete tzaddik. In other words, if you're articulate and you're motivated by the love and awe of God in a way that you're completely like a consummate righteous person, then it will ascend and you'll be connected to the world of Atzilus. Now, if it's not such a lofty, consummate intent, but that love and awe is produced because you appreciate and understand the greatness of the learning that you're engaged in, and the greatness of that connection. You understand it, and it brings something to a feeling in the heart. So then it will ascend and be connected to the divine when you articulate the narrative. We're talking about the narrative now, right? It will then ascend to the world of Bria. Why? Because the world of Bria is a world of divine comprehension, and it was your comprehension that led to a feeling of love and awe that allows it to ascend the narrative of Torah that you're learning to the world of Bria. Now, if you're motivated by the natural love and awe the soul has, not because of intellect, but the natural emotive disposition of the soul, the divine soul, is love and awe. And if that's what motivates you, that inherent, so then the teachings of the narrative that you're learning and articulating will ascend to the world of Yetzirah, to the divine of the world of Yetzirah. And if you're just merely motivated by just acceptance of the yoke of heaven, God wants me to study, so I'm studying and I'm articulating the narrative, so then it will ascend to the world of Asiya, to the divine of the world of Asiya, right? But to the divine, the 10 divine attributes there, right? In contrast, though, if I only had the thought, I didn't vocalize, so then it doesn't ascend to the higher worlds. It doesn't connect to the higher worlds. It affects only my likeness. My likeness, which is the source of my soul, right? In other words, there's my spiritual counterpart right now that's engaged in the learning that I'm learning right here, physically. If I were reading, let's say, from the Chumash, the Parsha now, without vocalizing it, and I'm only reading the storyline, and I didn't vocalize it, right? So it doesn't descend. Then it's my likeness above that is connected. I hope that's clear. Now, how does that fit in? So we just said that you're thinking the words. In other words, you're just reading it. Thinking meaning you're reading the words of let's say this week's Torah portion is told us, right? And you're reading the Rashi with it. And it's again, it's a narrative. It's not when you're on that level, it's not you're not you're reading a story, and of course it's divine wisdom, of course it's the will of God, but you're not learning it on that level. So your likeness above is you're not, and since you didn't verbalize it, right? If you verbalize, even if it's the narrative, so then it does ascend. You do connect. Now, how does this fit in with what the Zohar says, that thought doesn't help anything, doesn't achieve anything? We just said that your thought will achieve, that your likeness will be connected. The source of your soul will be connected, right? So the Alter Rebbe explains. When the Zohar says that thought doesn't help anything, achieves nothing, it means it doesn't achieve anything in this world. In this world, your thoughts don't elicit anything from on high. And that's why it's only your likeness that is connected, but not you down here. That's what the Zohar means. On the other hand, when you do articulate, by articulating the teachings, you are now you're arousing from down here an awakening above, an arousal from below, and you bring new light into this world. So it comes out like this. We have thought and we have speech. Thought can ascend things above, because in your thoughts, there's a motivation of love and awe of God. So it can ascend above, just like your likeness is learning when your thoughts are engaged in the narrative and it's connected. So in your thoughts that are connected with a love and awe of God, it ascends the teachings that you're learning, ascends to the spiritual realm and creates a union. Because after all, you're studying Torah, so it creates a union because you're motivated by a love and awe of God. It creates a union between the male and female parts of the divine. Now, the question, though, is to bring it down back into this world. The union is in the spiritual realm above. What allows that union, which just like a male and female union down here begets new life, or at least potentially. And of course, since we're finite, so it's only potential. But by God, when you create that union in the divine order of things, you've created new life, meaning a new light of God emerges. But if it's only propelled upwards through your thoughts that are motivated with love and awe of God, then it remains up there, that union. And that's what the Zohar says, that thought achieves nothing down here. Up there it does, but not down here. When that thought is then coupled with thought, which is important because it creates the union, right? The thought of the learning that is also the thought that has the love and awe of God, when it's coupled together with articulation, verbalizing, expressing it outward, right? Just as thought is something between me and myself and I, so it only stays in the spiritual me, myself, and I above, so to speak, right? But when I articulate that, articulation is not inherently it's just articulation. Thoughts are more, you know, a deeper part of us. So articulation is articulating outwardly. So now through that articulation, together with the thought that and the love and awe of God that is in that thought that's articulated, it brings down the union down into this reality over here. Just like speech is something that is outward to express to someone else outside of me. So likewise, when I articulate the Torah teachings, through the thought, it creates a union, but through the articulation, it brings down that union, that new light, in other words, that we have created through learning Torah, being connected to the divine wisdom. It brings a new light into this world through the articulation of that Torah teaching. Specifically when it's a narrative that we're talking about, right? Because it's in the narrative that became the question. So, yeah. So, which is quite something. So to ascend our thoughts that are motivated by a love and awe of Hashem, and there are three dimensions of love and awe, right? As the righteous, that because they're totally bound up with God. One that is coming from an awareness, an understanding about our connection to God, and therefore that brings a feeling in the heart. And then finally, the natural love and awe that the soul has. That's another motivator that allows that thought of Torah teaching to ascend on high, create a union in the divine. And when we articulate it, then it brings it down into a reality down here that envelops us, engages us. So there's a few important points over here. Few important points. One is the thought matters because the thought that is motivated, it's coupled with a love and awe of Hashem, quote unquote, what we're capable of. Um, creates a union in the divine. We affect the divine. We always think of the divine affecting us. It's kind of normal, regular way of understanding, creation, God. No, we affect the divine just by thinking words of Torah. That might be even just a narrative. And yet when we verbalize it, we concretize it by verbalization, we're bringing that union down here into this world and making it a reality down here. That's very powerful. Very powerful. We are very powerful, more than we imagine. That's why it's so important, our Torah learning, that we have in mind that we create that union. And that we actually change, from a physical perspective, the world nothing changes. E equals mc squared just means that there's energy and there's matter and they interchange. Nothing really, you can form or shape something, but nothing changes. The world is cyclical, right? The seasons, the cycle of the seasons, the cycle of the month, the week. Oh, another Shabbos is coming, another, Yom Revi'i, fourth day of the week, Wednesday. Just, but here with this notion is that we're creating something new, creating a union above, between male, female of above, that gets a new light, which is new life. Wow. That's like, wow, I can create new life. Spiritual, physical life, we understand that. But every time I'm learning, that's a very powerful statement. And that's what we have the capacity. That's something to live with. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Zurich Kadesh in Montreal, Canada, where it's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. Thank you for being here, learning. Now we're going to learn Rambam, which is actual Jewish law, divine wisdom.